welcome to the show. Today I'm joined, as usual, by my good colleagues James Crux and Steve Fraser. And once again, it's a short week, but it's been a lively one. James, what's been going on?
It sure is, yeah. And as usual, it's all about Trump and the Middle East, isn't it, Ian? So the US has agreed this 2 week ceasefire with Iran, and European markets are flying. So just looking at the screen there, the FTSE 100 is up 2.5% to 10,600. But the big gains really
Nice.
look to be across the channel, with the CAC 40 is up 4, the DAX is up 4.5, Italy and Spain are both green. But on the flip side, Brent crude's down 9% to sort of $95, something like that. But given we started the year at 60, that's still a big gain over just 3 months, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course, across the pond, I mean, yesterday's US markets closed before this news broke, so it wasn't reflected in S&P and Nasdaq, and you're seeing massive futures index jumps today. So the Nasdaq is looking at about 3.5% jump, the S&P maybe 3%, something like that. So I mean, it's all gung ho, and we wrote about what kind of stocks and what kind of ETFs might rally really strongly if and when a ceasefire was called. And we're starting to see some of those share prices rally. I think today the FTSE 100, I mean, there are 7 fallers across the whole 100 index. So it's not really about necessarily company specifics. It's just, a rising tide is lifting all boats.
So, we talk about the taco trade. Trump always chickens out. And I thought, is this the world's largest taco? But it's not. Because I found out that in 2019, they made one in Mexico that was 2.7 tons. That was 1.2 tons of tortilla and 1.5 tons of pork. That keep you going for a while.
I reckon Trump could still manage it.
Yeah, I think it was 100 meters long apparently. But James, what's caught your eye this week?
Yeah, lots of things, Ian. So we had Bill Ackman's Pershing Square with this very sort of complex plan to merge Universal Music with its Spark, which is like a SPAC by any other name. So basically, he thinks Universal Music's been a poor performer, and this merger can kind of remedy some of those reasons. Then we had a surprise upgrade, I thought, from Motorpoint. Given the depressed consumer confidence, the noise around interest rates and fuel prices, but they've upgraded profit guidance and they seem quite upbeat. And then over in the biotech sector, you get more M&A. So Celino Thera, which is a very small company, but it's held in the International Biotechnology Trust. And they've now racked up 3 takeovers in March alone. So that kind of that process is really paying off for that investment trust.
Hot market, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, what's grabbed you, Steve?
Well, hot markets to go with the hot weather. It's positively balmy where I am. I mean, what I thought was particularly fascinating today was news from GAMA Communications. Now, it might not come across the radar for many retail investors, but it's a FTSE 250 company. It gravitated up from AIM. And I've been writing about this company all the way back to its 2014 IPO. It's all about making designer bespoke telecoms equipment, but it does a really good job at doing it. But recent years, it's really fallen out of favour with investors, and partly I think that's because some of its contracts are quite lumpy, so predictability can be a little bit difficult to manage. But it's basically said, we're in background talks with potential buyers. It's on a PE of under 8. Now, this is astonishing to me of a company that has consistently done double-digit earnings growth and revenue growth over the longer term. And it just looks like a really well-positioned company. And so any offer that comes in would seem to be at a really opportunistic level. And it will be a really sad event if against another one of these really good quality FTSE companies, FTSE 250 companies, that's just getting taken out potentially on the cheap. It is very much potentially at this stage, though.
Yeah, well, funny you say that, because actually just before we came on air, I was reading Advent International said they're not bidding for Senior, the aerospace and defence firm, and that's another one that, I mean, they said in February they were looking at it. Then they come out today and said they're not looking at it. But what I'd missed in between is lunchtime yesterday when Blackstone and a consortium of other companies came out and said they were offering £3 for it. Well, the shares obviously moved a little bit. They're below the £3 level. It's not much of a premium, but that stock that's up nearly 50% already this year. It's been a flyer.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke briefly about it before coming on air today, and what strikes me is, I mean, the shares have been kind of solid but very unspectacular over the sort of medium term. But over the
Mm,
last year or so, they've just gone absolutely gangbusters. And it just seems to me that if anyone's coming in, private equity, whomever it might be, they really seem to have mistimed this, because a year ago they could have picked this company's stock up for about half the price. So it's
yeah.
just, private equity doesn't always get it right.
No, absolutely. And dare I say, I flagged Senior as one of these interesting kind of UK space related stocks, along with things like BAE,
Yeah.
Babcock. I mean, the usual suspects, they're big in satellites and so on. Cohort's been winning satellite comms orders as well. So we've got a story on space stocks, Senior features in that if it's interesting for people. Um, the thing I've been looking at this morning has been Shell, of course, which we've talked about Brent crude being down, and so that's one reason why Shell shares are down. But they've also increased their loss forecast for Q1. So that instead of 400 to 600 million bucks, they're now looking about maybe as much as $1 billion
Yeah.
of operating loss for Q1. And this
Yeah.
is because their LNG facility in Qatar got hit quite early on in this conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not my area of expertise by any means, but I mean, I think it's really difficult to separate. I mean, Brent crude is down about 15% today. But it's difficult to separate what it's saying operationally and company specific wise versus just what's going on in the wider macro world. So it might be something to watch over the coming days and weeks to see what kind of commentary it's puts out, regardless of what oil prices are doing.
Yeah, this is as always. They do a sort of kind of pre-results guidance, and so the stock doesn't collapse on the day when they
Yeah,
do. I think there's another month or so before they actually publish first quarter results. But what I would be very surprised is if they actually change their full year guidance, because all their forecasts are based on a $63 Brent crude price. It's down today, but it's still 93, 94 bucks.
yeah,
It's still 50% higher than they
yeah.
assumed it would be for the full year.
Yeah. But
And
again, we talked about this before, Ian. Is it to what extent might these companies be exposed to windfall taxes from governments as well?
mm,
So it's a very complicated issue, isn't it? It's not
it
just a case
is.
of oil prices go up, ergo all those extra profits come shareholders' way. The government likes to get its oar in as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a funny tweet this morning which said, "Oh, so Brent crude's down 15%. So when I go to the petrol pump, that'll be
Yeah.
down. That's how it works, right?"
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did
Things markets
also see.
react on the upside very quickly, and
Yeah,
then kind of
yeah,
just trundle down
exactly.
over a much longer period of time.
Yeah, up,
Anyone
up
who's
it.
paid, we all pay our
Yeah,
energy bills, right? We all know
it's
this about
always
gas prices.
up in the lift, down the stairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I did also see Close Brothers came out today with positive guidance. Now, I think we kind of expected this because the FCA had put a cap on payouts for motor finance claims. So, for anybody who hasn't been following the story, who's been on a spaceship round the moon, maybe, then the company and Lloyd's and lots of other secure trust bank, lots of other lenders were hauled over the coals for charging dealers charging commissions to people and not revealing them. So
Yeah,
the FCA has taken a long time to work it out. They reckon that the total that they may be liable to around £500 per customer. Well, the FCA thought the average would be 829.
yeah,
They're saying that's because typically their loans were smaller and they charged a lower level of commission. So in
right.
total, maybe $320 million exposure. They've already provisioned
Yeah,
majority of that, 295. Now, bear in
yeah,
mind, Viceroy Research, Naughty Boys, the short sellers, they came out last month and said they reckon their exposure could be £1 billion.
right.
So
Okay.
they were so
Wrong.
wide of the mark. And the stocks, yeah, although kind of we knew they'd be good news, the stocks bounced like 16, 17% today
Yeah.
because they don't need to raise cash
Yeah,
to pay this.
that's a really important point, Ian. And I think it's also it's not so much good news; it's less bad news.
Less
That's
bad
that's
news,
that's the way of seeing
exactly.
it. But I mean, markets obviously look for the worst case scenario, and it's not the worst case scenario. So markets are reacting to
Therefore,
that
it's good
to
news.
calculate that. But it's
Yeah,
less bad news.
yeah. And James, you'll be looking out tonight, won't you? Constellation Brands, I believe.
Yeah. Constellation brands, that's Corona and Modelo. All eyes on what's happening with volumes and price. As per usual, these consumer goods stocks. Big sort of Mexican population for sort of fans of their brand. So they've been hit by that kind of ice crackdown across the pond. Also tomorrow we've got AstraZeneca trading update, so very significant FTSE stock. And I believe you'll have your eye on another one, won't you, Ian? Is it Metlen Energy? Is that quite a recent listing?
Yeah, it came to the market last summer, James, Metlin Energy. Again, it's a sort of, I think of it as a sort of closet defence stock, but unlike all the defence stocks, it's not been a great performer. It's down something like 40% from when it listed. It's Greek. It's still a FTSE 100 stock, but it trades in euros. It has its full year results tomorrow. I'll be looking to see what they say about the defence business because that's a real area of growth, and they've got big deals with German defence companies like Rheinmetall, who are benefiting from the the debt ceiling being lifted in Germany and lots of money going to that. I think
I
actually,
mean,
chaps, that's
something else that I think is worth pointing out to our listeners is that SpaceX, we know its IPO is coming up. They're actually formalising this now. They're looking at booking in their investor roadshow from early June. But one thing they've said is they're looking to do a much bigger retail investor offer as part of the actual IPO. Now, this is quite rare for these really big IPOs, and it's quite complicated for retail investors to get involved in them. So it'd be worth looking at what the options might be and maybe contacting your broking platform to see if there's any access opportunities for you to get in at the ground floor on the IPO. I guess that most of the UK platforms won't have access because it's a US company, obviously. But you never know, it might be. And there's obviously a platform like Robinhood that have a UK presence now. Might that be a backdoor way in to getting some access? So it's a space worth watching just to see what that retail offer might be and how UK investors might or might not be able to access it.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve, because we know that is going to be one hot issue.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, guys, that about wraps it up, I think, for today. We'll be back on Friday with a look ahead to next week. And if you want to come on the podcast, if you're a fund or a trust or a company and you want to come on and get your message across to investors, then please just email us at editorial@sharesify.com. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
See you
Cheerio.
soon.